So it was 2 weeks after the murder, and I was in a back conference room, and I was supposed to be working on a case, and I was staring at the wood floor. I remember it, and the sun was shining on the wood floor, and I was just staring at the floor, thinking about Dan being killed, and I couldn't stop thinking. I was like in a haze, and the receptionist like buzzed the conference phone or the phone in the conference room, and it kind of like startled me back out of my stupor. And she said, "There's somebody on the phone for you. It's a doctor's office in Miami." And I was like, "Why is a pediatrician's office in Miami calling me?" So I was like, "Okay." So I get on the phone. Young lady said, "Are you Dan Markel's attorney?" And I said, "Well, I don't even know how to answer that right now." I think by then we already filed like the notice of death and everything out. I was like, "I don't know." I yes, I am. I said yes. And so she said, "Okay, well, we need to get your authorization because the mother wants to have the children seen at our office." And I said, so then I was like, "Well, shit, what am I, excuse my language, but I was like, what am I going to do here?" And I said, "Look, if those children need treatment, you have my authorization. Whatever it's good for, I don't know, but you got it full 100%. And she could tell I was kind of panicked. And she said, "Oh, no. There's nothing wrong with them. They're fine. The mother just wants to change the pediatrician from Tallahassee to our office down here in Miami." And I was just gobsmacked. They've done that to me a lot in this case. Just when I think I can't be surprised by these people, they surprise me again. So I was just like, oh my Lord. Like I'm sitting here in my office, supposed to be working, and I can't even focus on my work because I can't stop thinking about Dan being murdered and how did this happen. And she's out just running errands like it's nothing. And I just was blown away. And then it was probably like 20 minutes later that Jimmy called me. And he said, "Stephen, that they weren't supposed to call your office. They were supposed to call my office." And he said that was a mistake. And he said, "I'd appreciate it if you didn't say anything to the investigator about this." And I said, "Jimmy, you don't know me if you think I'm not going to tell Craig Isom about this. That's happening." So,
yeah.
Right.
Isom, the primary investigator in the case with the Tallahassee PD. So do you think that the relaying of that date impacted the murder?
I mean, it clearly didn't initiate it. They were already plotting before then. But, I have to wonder. I certainly did for a long time before I found out, the backstory. For years, I carried it around thinking that was why it happened that day, solely because of me. And at that time, I believed that, I didn't know that they had already come up and tried to kill him in June. You know what I mean? So it was haunting for me. But I mean, I do believe it played a role. And, maybe I don't know. I don't like to think that way, but I think it played some role.
Yeah. And you said that they had done this kind of backstabbing to you before. What did you mean by that? When you got the call from the pediatrician's office, because you've been in the case, for about 6 weeks now, 7 weeks before he's killed?
Yes, ma'am. They just
you can call me Linda. It's okay, ma'am. I always think is the kiss of death. That means I'm old, I'm dying, I'm in the coffin.
My parents, man, I grew up.
Stop being no politeness here.
It was just a lot of scummy things like the diamond ring. This was another reason why I decided that I was going to help Dan. He told me at that first meeting that his uncle Laser was like very, very important in his life, like almost like a second father to Dan. And he had a Holocaust diamond that he gave to Dan for the engagement ring. And when they divorced, Dan, obviously their family wanted that ring back. And she, at a deposition, she testified under oath she was going to return it to him. Okay. She hadn't yet. Then to turn around and still never returned it, never gave him, and it's just things like that. And then, like when you find out about the emails and she's talking about converting them to, to the Catholic faith and dressing them up in Hitler Youth uniforms. I mean, it's just like over and over again, these people find a way to up their level of evil. And you think at some point there's going to be a ceiling on it, but apparently there is no ceiling on the amount of evil these people are possessed by. So
I think the jury is seen by that. So did you get to watch the Linda Bailey testimony? So I guess I have two questions. Do you know her, since you said that family law, and I agree with you, is usually a pretty small practice in, different counties and different courts. And if you did, or learned about or read it, what did you think about
And
her
she was
saying
the expert that testified on behalf of the defense on the family law issue. I'm sorry.
right, that this was just a run of the mill, it was 80,000, no big deal, no one was upset, type of situation.
yeah, well, I mean, they killed him. So for me, that probably means it was contentious. I don't know. I mean, Linda and all her expertise, I mean, she can draw whatever conclusion she wants. But when your side kills my client, I feel like that's confirmation that it was a little bit contentious, probably.
That's probably the best answer that anyone has given who's watched Stephen.
Yeah, Georgia probably could have used that. Ms. Kappelman could have used that as a button to her cross-examination, although she did a fine job. Were you surprised to just, as to Ms. Bailey, how recalcitrant she was, just so entrenched on issues that a human would understand are emotional? No, not that emotional. They worked it out themselves. It wasn't emotional. It just seemed odd to me, almost like somebody who doesn't really work with people very much, and yet that's what she does.
Yeah, I only saw snippets, but I saw one snippet where she was refusing to admit that just divorce in general is emotionally charged. And Georgia was like apoplectic over it. And Georgia doesn't get apoplectic. Georgia doesn't have emotions. So I thought it was obnoxious. My wife's a lawyer and she watched it. I was still maybe gonna have to testify, so I didn't watch. And but my wife gave me a full report after that it was just gross.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Let me ask you about the trial.
Gross is a really good word for the testimony.
Yeah,
I say it's an understatement. I say you're being kind, Stephen.
Yes, it was icky already. So for what you do know about the trial, I'm assuming maybe you've gone back and looked at some of it since you learned you weren't going to be a witness. Have you learned anything from this trial that changes your opinion as to Wendy's involvement, either made it less likely or more likely?
Yeah, there were some things. First of all, that text that she sent to Charlie that was deleted, the sweet text, that's intriguing to me. One of the things that I don't know if it was, I kind of heard it, that the true meaning of gibbers came about.
Right.
Yeah. The Jew in boots thing.
Jew in boots. Yeah. That she's testified now multiple times had no meaning. It was just a
silly name. Just a silly name.
Silly name she came up with to make him less dangerous, or whatever her stupid testimony was. That just shows you that she is just a prolific liar. I mean, if her lips are moving, she's lying.